Welcome to Lovemore Banda Live. I am Lovemore Banda. I hope I find you well. Our guest is the chairman of the Zimbabwe Football Association, Zifa Normalisation Committee, Mr. Chendisaita Lincoln Mutasa. Mr. Mutasa, thank you very much for coming to Lovemore Banda Live, and I was pleasantly surprised when you said yes, considering everything that has been spoken and written about you, about your committee in general, and you in particular. Do you understand where all this is coming from? Do you see where the criticism is coming from?
Good morning, Lovemore. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to try and respond to some of those, what I would call unfound criticisms. Yes, I believe I do understand where the, the criticism is emanating from. As you're aware, we were given the task to normalize Zifa. And part of our work involved an internal analysis of the secretariat, the Zifa secretariat. It doesn't stop there. We also have to reconstitute the Congress, which is the body that eventually elects the the executive committee of Zifa, the board. So, in our initial engagement, we identified that the organization was not set up really to deliver soccer or football or best safe football. And we therefore embarked on creating a new organization chart. And as a result of that, we also parted company with some former employees because we did not see them fitting into the new organization or the vision that we had. We believe this might have irked friends and people like that who felt they were very good friends with them and they would have wanted them to continue within the association.
There were great expectations 11 July 2023 when your committee was appointed with meritocracy very much trending. I mean, we have Ms. Nyasha Sanya Mandwe, who is legal and you can't do without law in committees. We have Rosemary Mugadza, former Warriors captain and coach, and that's as high an appointment as they come. And the two ladies also answering the gender imperative. Then we had Skumbuzo Ndebele, former player with the elite outfit Highlanders. And finally you, as the chairman, a former Dynamos player and no stranger to the chair, as you said in one at Dynamos. Do you feel that you have fulfilled those great expectations?
You will be surprised. It's funny that what happens in our society, the whole football ecosystem focuses purely just on the national team. That's where everybody's focus is. But within the past 9 months or so, we have gone to great length to actually re-establishing the structures that had almost collapsed. We have engaged, in fact, the whole secretariat has been reset up, whereby we now have a fully functional technical department with the grassroots youth people all engaged, and they are now beginning to engage all the many clubs around the country. You know, we've just recently got about 2,000 youth clubs, grassroots clubs, all over the country who are wanting now to be part of Zifa, which had retired or resigned themselves to just playing social football without having any affiliation to Zifa. But within the past year, the efforts that we've made has actually made Zifa come back on, to engage with the rest of the community or the country. We've also had the FIFA for Schools, whereby it's a program to try and encourage soccer to be played throughout the year, not just the second term. We had the the CAF Under 15 tournament for both boys and girls end of last year, which we're going to be doing every year. So all that is efforts that the public will not see, You mentioned Nyasha Sanyamandwe. She has gone to great pains to actually collating all the data for the stakeholders that we've engaged with, not only just in Harare, but right around the country. We went around and we presented to various stakeholders about the forthcoming elections, or prior to that, getting our constitution to be reviewed. And we took in a lot of those inputs. She put it together and discussed with the FIFA guys who were able collectively to put all those comments into a new constitution, which currently is in circulation. Once we adopt that, then we're good to go. So if your measure is clearly just about the national team, what people are concerned about is why we've been chopping and changing from coach to coach. But that to me is not as important, in the sense that what we're trying to do is make sure that the structure is correct. That is more important going forward, that Zifa has got the right structure from the base all the way up.
Mr. Chairman, I'm not happy with you because you pointed out that everyone focuses on the national team. And I wanted to focus on the national team. so I'm not happy with you for that reason. So I will desist from focusing on the national team for now. You had a mandate from FIFA.
Okay.
You had templates. You have a roadmap.
Yeah.
Out of 10, where are you?
Out of 10, the mandates were actually 6. The first one was to run the affairs of Zifa. The second one was to reconstitute, the secretariat and the whole Congress, whatever, and the statutes. Then there were things like MOU with the ministry. And finally, it was all about getting the statutes back on place and things like that. So you find that out of the 6, 4 are almost complete. 4 of those mandates are complete. What the major item that is outstanding now is basically making sure that the Constitution is fully reviewed by the members, and then those members have to ratify the new Constitution. But more important than that, we also had to normalize the accounts of Zifa. Maybe you are not aware, when we came on board, the previous accountant was missing, and the computer that contained all the data had broken down. So until we hired a new accountant, that area was stationary. But I'm delighted to say now, as we talk now, we managed to reconstruct the 2021 accounts, been audited. We're in the process of finalizing on the 2022 as well as the 2023. So the finances are now back on schedule. Another issue that people don't realize is, although we also have the Zifa Congress, and which elects the EXCO, there is another group of people which is very important in the running of football, and those are the committees. The committees had almost disappeared. As we talk now, we've reconstituted all these committees. And the committees, in the past, it was more French being invited to sit on the committees. But now we have very credible people who have said, look, guys, let's come on board to help redevelop our football. It's all about rebranding and creating the right image going forward. So we have very eminent people on various judicial bodies, accounting bodies. I think Mr. Much Masunda is on the audit, on the ethics side. You also have people like Mr. Nyasha Jo. All these are luminaries, in the audit side. I can name a lot of them. But for these people to actually accept to come and sit on the committees, despite the perception or the image that is being tried to be peddled. You can see that it doesn't make sense. They wouldn't have come anywhere near it if they truly believed that what was being peddled was kosher.
A hot topic is the Zifa elections.
Mm-hmm.
How far have you gone towards preparing for those elections, and when can we expect a substantive Zifa board in place?
I can assure you we will not spend one more day than is necessary while in office. That's why we said, look, the first thing is actually the new constitution. And that constitution has been drafted and is actually in circulation. I think by about the 7th of June, we expect the comments in. Then we will discuss with those people to see which ones need to be modified, whatever. And then we will now call for an E or AGM. Purpose of that AGM will primarily be to adopt those new constitution. Adopt the new constitution as well as ratify the audited accounts. Once that is done, it's got a significant impact on the actual date of the elections, because I think elections will come maybe 40 days afterwards. The reason for need for the ratification of, say, all those audited accounts and things like that is right now, for the whole period we've been in office, we've been not compliant with FIFA as well as SRC because we haven't had audited accounts, which is something that we're trying to bring in place. So clearly when we hand over, we would want to hand over when there is a clean financial slate for the incumbents.
Why haven't we had audited accounts?
I believe during the suspension as well as during the COVID period, we would not know. All we were told was that the computers crashed and the accountant was missing. So it can be anybody's guess why the unaudited accounts weren't done. I think this is really some of the things that we're supposed to normalize.
You talk about elections taking place 40 days after the extraordinary general meeting, and that obviously takes us outside of the July that many of us expected was going to be the end of your tenure. Mm-hmm. So what is going to happen to your term?
I think the normal trend is the guys who put us in office, they got this authority from the FIFA Council. So ordinarily, they would need to go back to the council to either ask for an extension, or they may even decide to say, look, we need to extend the process in Zimbabwe. We want to put in a new committee, a new normalization committee, which can see through this work. Either option is not within our say. We don't have much of a say in that. It's really is for the, I think, head of Africa, Mr. Gelson Fernandes. It's his call on which route he wants to take.
But as far as you're concerned, you're on course.
Yeah, we're very much on course. To me, the major things have been addressed. The major things have been addressed. Even in the national team, I know this is where a lot of people will be interested in. Even within the national team, what you will find is we've consistently had the same kind of players, a mixture of both local and foreign-based players participating. Yes, the coaches have changed, but that is a result of, I've told you about the limited funding that we had to start off with. So that restricted us to just looking within the country. But more recently, I think FIFA have sort of said, look, we want you to compete to the best of your abilities, and we'll be willing to help finance the engagement of a international coach if you deem it necessary. So this is why we've actually gone back out to try and re-engage an international coach.
The chairman of the Zimbabwe Football Association Normalisation Committee, Mr. Lincoln Mutasa, we will be back. We want to say thank you very much to 4 May, the home of bespoke suits in Zimbabwe and elsewhere, where men are transformed into gentlemen. Water is life in whatever form of storage. Born water helps you beat El Nino effects with a perfectly drilled borehole by a team with more than 10 years of experience in the business. Our motto, Mvura Ipapo Ipapo, demonstrates this. With 3 state-of-the-art rigs, Born Water is able to attend to your drilling requirements within 2 days of booking. A dedicated team of technicians ensures they leave water freely flowing into your borehole. Born Water, Mvura Ipapo Ipapo. Contact us today on 0771 366 672 or 0773 043 295. You're joining us on Lovemore Banda Live, and I am Lovemore Banda. We are talking to the chairman of the Zimbabwe Football Association, Zifa Normalisation Committee, Mr. Lincoln Mutasa. Mr. Mutasa, you have put up a defense for your term so far. You have said that as far as you're concerned, you're on track. But help me with this one. How do we then have people not happy with the work of your committee, not just journalists, but also people outside the media fraternity, saying that the committee is not doing well?
Yeah, I believe, there's so many people interested in Zifa. What I mean is, when I was a player, one thing that became very clear to me was that you're playing at Rufaro Stadium in front of 30,000 people, and you have the ball. Every one of those 30,000 people has, feels they know where you should be playing that ball. But when you're on the ball, it's you who make the decision. The minute you try to listen to all this noise or interference, chances are you're gonna do a wrong pass or something like that. So one quickly learned to focus on the mandate, or focus on what they're doing, so that you have a chance of actually achieving what you want to do. So as far as I'm concerned, the press can come up with a particular narrative. It doesn't always mean that they're right. What you need to really investigate is what's the motive behind that narrative. And clearly, if we follow our press, we can go back to the times of, the Asia Gate and things like that, where the press was very related to the goings-on at Zifa. So to me, I believe what we're trying to advocate for might not always be consistent with what they were used to. And naturally, I think it's correct, but I believe we're on the right path. We genuinely do feel that the fourth estate is a very important estate in the entertainment industry, of which football is. And we need to get closer ties. But whereas in the past, Zifa might have financed some of their trips to matches and things like that, we believe the way forward for such an arrangement is for us to identify sponsors who could actually sponsor our fourth estate, as opposed from Zifa. What you find with Zifa is right now we're not playing any games in the country. So it means Zifa is not generating any revenue. The revenue we're getting is really from FIFA. FIFA is one that's helping us. And if there's anything, I think FIFA would like their money poured into football-related issues. And I think we're just being responsible to make sure that the way we use that money is for its intended use.
Obviously, any criticism should not be ad hominem. In other words, it shouldn't be directed to you as a person, as Lincoln Mutasa. And so I'll stay clear of accusations of you perhaps being too old for the job. After all, you're not the oldest public office holder in the country. Granted that yours is a committee, but it should be granted too that it is the Mutasa committee. And therefore, there will be some criticism that will come to you. A colleague and one of the best in the business, Robson Sharuko, has described you as, quote, a nice guy, unquote. But critics say that, Mr. Chairman, you are too nice for the football administration streets, that you are not cut out for the rough and tumble that is elite football administration.
I think it's a perception. When you say too nice, maybe if you mean, yes, I'm too principled, yes, I agree with that. And I do agree that I do come from the old school. I'm not cut out for this cutting out favors to get things done. I genuinely believe to the old school where we were taught hard work brings results, as opposed to the modern trends of, ngati jingris, things will happen.
I like the issue of principle. And you did stand for the Zifa vice chairmanship some time back, and you lost. So you obviously have some experience of that. And the question now is, now that you're in this very important chair of the Zifa Normalisation Committee, what are you doing? Because there's also been concern from the public about the manner of Zifa elections in the past. What are you doing to ensure that going forward, candidates who on paper are as sound as you were when you stood for the vice chairmanship do actually win? That candidates who win Zifa posts are the candidates who draw up the best manifestos, not the candidates who withdraw the most cash.
Yeah, I think that's a very important point that you bring across. In fact, in the past, what we've actually seen happening is a lot of people have been entering soccer, not for football reasons, or football administration, not for football reasons, but more for personal reasons and other reasons. And this has led to the almost collapse of the structures of Zifa. So part of the reason why we've re-looked at the statutes, the constitution, is really to try and address those major concern areas. But yes, we all know you can have the best constitution in the world, but if the people want to violate it, it can still be violated. But we are hoping, or personally what I would hope for, is I would like a scenario where more and more footballers, former footballers, administrators, come back to help run the game. Because you know for a fact that those people have been in football because they love football. It's not like somebody who just all of a sudden wakes up and says, I can make money here. Let me run for Zifa. Those people, in many cases, would have already sacrificed so much of their time, their money in football. So you know for sure if they're to come within the ecosystem, they will share the common goal of wanting to grow football locally. So yes, going forward, we are hopeful that we are able to attract the right types of candidates who genuinely want to develop football, as for opposed to those who are here for personal reasons.
But it's not just the candidates, is it? It's also the electoral college.
Yes, the electoral college is an important component. In the past, I believed the regions, provinces, they had people who had stayed in those offices for a long time, and again, some of them were easy to convince to say, look, they would sacrifice the next 4 years for a meal at the Mikkels. We're hoping if we can re-engage new people in all those regions, new electorate, then maybe we'll have a different vision for the country. Clearly, Zifa will only be as good as the people who it attracts within its Congress and things like that. We're just hoping to attract the best possible people who can make football grow throughout the country.
One of your highlights at Dynamos was putting the club into real estate, which seems to be an area that most of Zimbabwe football regards as taboo. But when you became chairman of the Zifa Normalisation Committee, we were surprised that one of your first moves was to take Zifa out of Football House into rented premises. What informed this move?
There were a number of reasons, but the primary reason was basically 53 Livingstone was run down. It needs a new coat of paint, the borehole, there's no borehole there, we need to put in a borehole. So the ablution system, I think they were using water from, the delivery vans that come into a tank. And the image was not right. We believe we wanted to create a new image, a new brand for football. And that's why we opted to actually rent these premises while we do up 53 Livingstone. It's not only 53 Livingstone, we also have the Zifa village. We're also going to do that up so that one, we can play football there, but it can also be an administration block at the Zifa village. So yes, this is a temporary residence, but we definitely wanted to create the right image which can attract people like Mr. Banda to come here and share with us such interviews.
Mr. Chairman, there was an accusation when you first moved that you had moved to a premises where you may have had interest.
No, not even. How we came about this place, before we do anything, we actually get authorization from FIFA, and we have to justify for everything that we do. So we were aligned with FIFA, where they were also not happy with 53 Livingstone. They felt the place said it was not really fit for human consumption because of the toilets and the vision that we had. It was important for us to come out and redo it. This place, to me, it's a very relaxed place, and people are able to come here. They're able to, to conduct anything that they want to do within the 66.
Yeah, I like this place. But you didn't move here from Livingstone, did you?
No.
You went somewhere first?
Yes.
And that is the place that people say you had interest in?
No.
I think it was a joiner city.
Oh, okay. No, definitely. What happened is when we realized that 53 was where the secretariat was still housed, I opted to move into into Joiner City. I think we rented. We didn't rent. I actually got a boardroom for us to, first of all, bond as a team. If you remember, we were 5 people who had never seen each other, never worked together. Me, Mrs. Sanyamandwe, now Mrs. Moyo, by the way, Mrs. Mugaza, Mrs. Malaba came later, and Mr. S.K. Ndebele. I didn't know any of them. So it was important for us to also bond and fully strategize what we wanted to do, identify the nature of the challenges that were before us. And this we could not do while housed at 53. So we moved ourselves out, and then we started going in to interrogate, to examine all the things that needed to be examined at 53. From that point, we even started then looking for accommodation where we could actually move. And once we got this place, it now became easy for us to restructure the secretariat and move forward.
I do get the rationale for bonding, but does it worry you that people were worried that you had moved into Joina City, which is owned by your brother?
No, it doesn't worry me, because if people were to find out, we didn't pay a single cent of rent. This was just, my brother, I've got this challenge, help me. People are coming from different places. Can I just have one boardroom for a while? And they were very magnanimous. We did write a letter of thanks to Mr. Mavere, who is in charge of the offices there, for the gesture that they did. They didn't invoice us, not one day, which is what I think people were worried about, that maybe we were going back to the old habits of whereby I provide. I think the previous chairman used to have his own offices housing Zifa. No, this wasn't the case. This was genuinely a donation to try and help football get back on its feet.
So, Mr. Chairman, just for the record, let's assume that I don't hear properly. You said you did not pay for rent at Joina City?
No, not at all. Not even one single cent.
And you are saying that eventually Zifa will move back to Livingstone House, to Football House?
Yeah, it will be either 53 and the village. Already now, once we get 53 sorted out, when we get the borehole there and water is okay, we have the northern region there, but it's right now earmarked for the Women's Premier League, as well as the referee's desk and women's desk. They're all going to be at that side. But the TD department is more likely to eventually move to Zifa Village.
Zifa Village is an area of immense potential.
Yes.
What is your vision for that?
Our vision is, if we could persuade the government to give us the extra land below the current Zifa Village, I think there is some farming taking place there. It would be a nice place to actually put up a stadium there. But just to concentrate on our immediate area, we are wanting to resurface the AstroTurf. You remember we had an AstroTurf auction some years back. We would like to redo that. And then the hotel or the accommodation wing to actually continue and house the TD department, but having rooms for players to come in, and then the administration to move over to the other, the conference room. We would want to set up an admin block that side, and then have a number of pitches in the surrounding areas. So we've had actually engineers come in, they've surveyed it, and they've come up with various recommendations. So there is work taking place there.
And some catering?
Catering?
There's been concern in the past about the food that the players have had to eat, especially the women, and we have seen pictures of them eating all sorts, including a favorite of mine, though, ezangaphakathi.
What did you call that?
Ezangaphakathi, the intestines, the offals.
Offal.
Yeah.
No, clearly, when you're rebranding, you pay attention to detail. It's not just about the accommodation being correct, even the meals has to be correct. So this is something that I'm sure we will also get the GS to look into. The good thing is the GS we have now is somebody who is experienced in the catering industry. I think her mother owns Daisy's Lodge, and is somebody who has grown up in the catering industry, so she understands the importance of good cuisine. And also the nature of the game now is important, is focusing more on cuisine for the players.
The chairman of the Zimbabwe Football Association, Zifa Normalisation Committee, Mr. Lincoln Mutasa, will be back. We want to say thank you very much to 4 May, the home of bespoke suits in Zimbabwe and elsewhere, where men are transformed into gentlemen. Water is life in whatever form of storage. Born water helps you beat El Nino effects with a perfectly drilled borehole by a team with more than 10 years of experience in the business. Our motto, Mvura Ipapo Ipapo, demonstrates this. With 3 state-of-the-art rigs, Born Water is able to attend to drilling requirements within 2 days of booking. A dedicated team of technicians ensures they leave water freely flowing into your borehole. Born Water, Mvura Ipapo Ipapo. Contact us today on 0771 366 672 or 0773 043 295. Lovemore Banda live with the chairman of the Zimbabwe Football Association, Zifa Normalisation Committee, Mr. Lincoln Mutasa. Mr. Mutasa, are you happy with the workings of the Normalisation Committee, the relationships within the committee?
I'm extremely happy with the Normalisation Committee. As I mentioned, here were 5 strangers who came together and we quickly bonded. And it's really from that bond that we are able to help each other. Each one has got different strength, and we quickly realized from day one that nobody has a monopoly of knowledge, and we needed each other. And that's how we've worked in that spirit,
Mr. Chairman, listen carefully because I shall ask this only once. Mm-hmm. Are there factions in the Zifa Normalisation Committee?
Ask it once is correct. There is 5 individuals, but I wouldn't say we're factions in the sense that we all have the same mandate that we're trying to fulfill. And we all have been working very closely to achieving those mandates. I may not know what people do after dark, but when we're working together, we definitely work together and come up with various resolutions. Yes, within the secretariat or within the greater Zifa, there may have been people with different interests or wanting to serve different masters, but I wouldn't say that is predominantly within the NC, no.
Is your committee happy with the work of the FIFA forward manager, Kutishitima, and your chief executive officer, Madam Yvonne Mapika Manwa?
Kuzi is a very good worker. That I cannot tell you. He is an enthusiastic young man, and he covers a lot of ground. The only issue that we have is once he gets involved, he sometimes forgets to inform his superiors to say, look, this is what I'm doing. And I think that's the only thing that the NC are concerned about, that they want him to actually report back to them.
He's the FIFA forward manager, yeah, who goes forward.
Exactly. But he's an exceptional worker. He really is. And a very nice character. Similarly with the GS, she's also a very capable person, but again, she came in midway through our tenure. I think it was November time that she joined us, and at that stage, she just jumped in the middle of the journey. And what now happens is, when you have a GS, the GS is the one who communicates with FIFA, with the outside bodies. And that could also may have caused some friction, purely because she came very enthusiastically and started running with that. And if one or two members within the NC might have felt like they've been overlooked, I think it's just a matter of teething problems in adjusting as people start to work together.
Is your committee happy with the interface between the FIFA head of development programs for Africa, Mr. Solomon Mutege, and the above mentioned, Messias Chitima and Mapika Manwa?
No, for us, we were in Paris, I think in January, February this year, where we met up with the NC as well as the FIFA grouping. And there it was made very clear by Mr. Mdenge that the communication with Zifa is not going to be with the NC, but it's going to be with Madam Manwa. So for us, we were very clear, or at least with me, it was very clear that this is going to be the channel of what? Communication. So we have no problem with that. And we believe going forward, this will also set the pace for the incoming Zifa Board, that they will always talk through the GS, and the GS will communicate with the FIFA colleagues. It's just a matter of us making sure that what we want is when the GS speaks to FIFA, have we been informed as the NC? Has the EXCO been informed? Look, this is the decision we're taking and we're moving forward. And that to me is it's just a governance issue, a communication issue, which once it's fully understood, I think will help the organization going forward.
For the benefit of those who are new in the game, I'm taking it that GS, we mean the General Secretary.
Correct.
Who in the organization is also the Chief Executive Officer.
Exactly. She's the CEO.
Thank you very much. Is your committee happy with the interface between it and Mr. Mudenge?
Yes, we can say we have no immediate challenges at the moment, except those that I mentioned, that, you know, there are some articles that from enthusiasm she will communicate before she is notified the NC. But I think this we've talked about, and it's something that we are now on one page on.
No, the interface between you, the committee, and Mr. Mudenge.
Oh, Mr. Mdenge has been very helpful to us. When we started, he was the one who actually sat down, told us the nature of the relationship between FIFA and the association, the funding, how it was going to be done, what we needed to do, where the funding was to come from. And that was like priceless information. It really quickly got us running from day one. So that interface is okay, but going forward, I think people maybe are still adjusting to this thing that he is now just talking directly with the GS and not necessarily strongly with the NC. But from our communication, we also have a platform with the rest of the FIFA guys, where if we want to communicate anything, we're free to do that. You know, with WhatsApp now, you can have various silos to communicate with whoever you want. So I wouldn't call that a challenge, a major challenge.
Mr. Chairman, I'm asking all this because I've been reading the Warriors coach appointment diaries, which would be a bestseller if it was published. I don't know how much Zig it would be sold for. The story is, Mr. Chairman, that Baltimore Brito was going to be made the coach of the Warriors. That was the view of one faction. That your faction shot that down because you didn't like Brito, because he had criticized you for the manner that you handled the Rwanda and the Nigeria ties. That you then came up with the name of a coach, because qualifications are involved, I'll say a coach who coaches a team in Bulawayo,
Mm-hmm.
that this was shot down because it didn't have qualifications.
Mm-hmm.
That the other faction came up with Lloyd Chitembwe.
Mm-hmm.
That this was shot down because there were issues, immigration issues around his ability to enter into South Africa.
Okay.
That finally, you then settled for the interim coaching structure on those coaches that initially you would have wanted to be the assistants for Lloyd Chitembwe, who now are Jairus Tapera, Tekshua Chiragwi, and Sol Chaminuka. I put you on your defense.
I'm not defending anything. I'm just putting the record straight. For your information, we engaged Mr. Brito last year based on that limited funding that I talked to you about earlier on, and also the need for us to have a coach who had papers that were acceptable to CAF. And from the local coaches at the time, we were concerned that a lot of coaches did not have the CAF A. I think they had been given courses, but some of them had not been given the certificates. So we opted for Mr. Brito. That engagement was only until end of December because it was tied to the Highlanders contract. Highlanders had only engaged him until the end of December 2023. So that's what we did. Come to Rwanda. To tell you the truth, all of us got on exceptionally well with Mr. Brito. He's an excellent gentleman, and he seems a very knowledgeable coach as well. So where people are thinking that we shot down Mr. Brito, I think it's for different reasons. I mean, for the wrong reasons. We didn't shut him down. What we did is, for the game in Malawi, we felt, let us again continue using local coaches as we had done. And I think that's when we went for Norman and Chiragui and somebody else. We didn't want the idea of engaging a full-time coach who is very expensive for the association. You know, to bring somebody like Mr. Brito out here, it means we would have to pay like 2 air flights for him to go on holidays back to Europe. That's number one. Number two, we would have to pay him his basic as well as accommodation at times. This can be quite expensive, particularly if the relationship goes south or sour. Once it happens like that, we might have to pay him off for the rest of the tenure for no return. So we were very deliberate in saying, look, let's look for somebody within our ecosphere who we've got the control over, at least the budgets and things like that. That's what happened. It was not because of what the papers are saying. Those papers are the same papers who told us, these people have suspended, what is it, Udenisi player, Jordan Zamure is not coming because he wrote a story against us. They're just speculating. They're very creative, and they're very good journalists.
But for the record, Brito did criticize you.
He didn't criticize us. What Brito,
he was not happy with your handling.
No. Mr. Brito did not criticize us. What he said was he felt things like the medical equipment were not up to, what do you call it, to the
standard.
To the standard or to the requirements that he needed, which is a very good observation. That's how we improve. In fact, the same Brito went with the same team to Botswana. Those things could have been brought up from the Botswana trip, but they didn't come up at that trip. That's why we didn't prepare for them. It's only now that I think the tenure had finished that maybe he wrote a very constructive comments, which we fully took on board on the kits. as well as, I can't remember the other issues that he highlighted in his report. The only concern maybe we could say this was within our own internal area, whereby I think he wrote to the Secretariat, but the Secretariat didn't inform me about that, and the next thing I read it in the press. So I started asking, hey, how come I'm reading about this in the press? Then I later find out, no, he had actually written to the Secretariat, which to me is perfectly normal. Even when Norman went to Malawi, we asked all of them to send us reports of their experience in camp, not only the coach, even the medic, even the team captain, everybody. So all those comments that come up, we would have had first-hand information. And to me, I was actually very sorry about Malawi because I didn't get to go. So I felt I sort of put Norman in the deep end without giving him a clear vision of what we're expecting from that tournament.
4 coaches in so many months, it sounds like a lot. Why didn't you continue with Norman now for Lesotho and South Africa?
When we started looking for a coach, once FIFA had given us that go-ahead, we actually approached Callisto as well as Norman. Ideally, we wanted Callisto and Norman to work together. But Callisto, I think he's quite satisfied where he is. He was not forthcoming. Then we settled on Norman, and for sure we would have continued with Norman, but I think 1 or 2 things he was not satisfied about, so he did not want to continue. So, but we did approach him, and that's the bottom line.
I suppose you wouldn't want to share with us his areas of dissatisfaction.
No, I think they're in the public domain. He's worked for the Zifa for many years, for the country for many years. The first time, I think he was owed a lot of money, and that money, I think, was not satisfactorily repaid back to him. When we came on board, there was also another chunk that was outstanding, and we've been making efforts to try and repay that outstanding amount. I don't know whether we're finished by now or not, but clearly those are some of the issues that maybe he wasn't satisfied about. I think if we might have missed 1 or 2 payments, he might have felt, we're going back to the old period again.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, that you are the normalization committee. Mm-hmm. Surely you must normalize his payment.
Yeah. It has been normalized, I think. We have, at least what we agreed, we have settled the outstanding dues. We might have missed a month, but clearly the next month would have paid double or something like that. Mm.
The chairman of the Zimbabwe Football Association, Zifa Normalization Committee, Mr. Lincoln Mutasa, do join us in the next segment. We want to say thank you very much to 4 May, the home of bespoke suits in Zimbabwe and elsewhere, where men are transformed into gentlemen. Water is life in whatever form of storage. Born Water helps you beat El Nino effects with a perfectly drilled borehole by a team with more than 10 years of experience in the business. Our motto, Mvura Ipapo Ipapo, demonstrates this. With 3 state-of-the-art rigs, Born Water is able to attend to your drilling requirements within 2 days of booking. A dedicated team of technicians ensures they leave water freely flowing into your borehole. Born Water, Mvura Ipapo Ipapo. Contact us today on 0771 366 672 or 0773 043 295. We're talking to the chairman of the Zimbabwe Football Association Normalisation Committee, Mr. Lincoln Mutasa. Mr. Mutasa, we were talking about the interim committee that you have in place now, led by Jairo Stapera of Mandika Diamonds. I see this getting the coach of the leading log leaders, it's some honor. But isn't there a fear that it may compromise the performance of his club?
It's always an honor to represent your country at any level, whether it's as a player or as a coach and things like that. The choice was quite deliberate in the sense that we looked at his record last year, his performance, I think they came second or something like that. And this year, they've started very strongly. So he's showing that he's a consistent performer. With Mr. Chiragui, he had been to Malawi, so he knows the players who played in Malawi. So we just wanted that continuity to continue. And with Mr. So Chaminyuka, I think it's also his performance that we've been tracking. Then the issue of Mr. Marimo is basically we need to have succession planning within the sport. And he is our most successful coach over the years. Why just throw him out of the... We want him to come and be around and help, guide, whatever. Help with communication between the players and the coaches. Because it's sometimes easier to go to a former and say, look, I'm not happy. The coach is doing this. And he can easily find a way to bridge the gap. So that's what we're trying to do.
Is it possible that the Lesotho and South Africa games are an audition for this interim committee, and that if they do well, these guys could actually get the Warriors' jobs?
Our vision is we would like to set up a system whereby our local coaches are trained, and we have partnership or exchange programs, not necessarily exchange programs, with foreign clubs, like within the Premier League in the UK. And we are talking to one or two teams about this, whereby these coaches, not just these three, we can even have many more who will be sending abroad so that we improve and we develop a methodology of football within the country. So yes, if we were to have our way, we definitely would encourage the development of our own people. You remember very well, when I was at Dynamos, the first thing we did was to send Mr. Marimo to Brazil, where he was trained with Mr. Sarupinda, and they came back and they brought in a new brand of football. So I've always believed that it's not so much about these coaches coming in to help us, but it's more us developing our own people. And then they come back, and we know that knowledge will be coming here to stay.
All very well, Mr. Chairman, but the criticism is that you leave your appointments of these coaches too late. That the Warriors, ever since you took office, have never had adequate time for preparations. What was the delay in coming up with the names of these people so that you gave them enough time? Two weeks surely is not enough time for an international assignment.
Correct. What happened is we definitely flighted about a month ago the advert for the coach who is supposed to be substantive. But as we shortlisted these candidates from that long list of about 180 applicants, it became very obvious to us that within those 180 coaches or whatever, most of them were not based in nearby countries. Some of them were already working in other organizations. So it might require another lead time before we can actually bring them on board. So we immediately decided, no, let's have a plan B. And plan B was to actually have our own local coaches, and who could quickly at least keep the players in shape and be able to go with the team should we have challenges bringing these other coaches on board.
Substantive, are you looking at a local coach? Are you looking at a foreign coach? Or you're just looking for the best man for the job?
The best man for the job, because we've had local people who've applied as well as international people who've applied.
So it could be Lloyd Chitembwe.
I do not think I don't know if he applied, I'm not sure. I don't think he applied. But from those that applied...
It could be Brito.
Brito applied. Who was it?
He could get it.
I don't know. I would be lying.
But I mean, he could.
If he could have, I think he would have come immediately to this current, what do you call it, engagement. But I'm not the one who actually does the selection. The selection is done by the technical department with the various committees, the technical committee. All I do is I just stand up here and defend the decisions that would have been made, but I have no sort of extra vote or anything like that on who is selected to come in. But what I do know is the quality of applicants has been exceptionally high.
Considering that you are saying that you have no hand in selections in these appointments, that they are done by committees and therefore they are done outside you, I suppose it would worry you that there have been accusations that there has been a preponderance of Manika appointments during your tenure. People from Manicaland. Vanamarangi, Unidzarira, and so on and so on.
Yeah.
With the Windzara even being said, you know him from Botswana.
No, I like the way you say during your tenure. Because if we look at who appointed me, Nyasha, Rosemary, SK, and Mrs. Malaba, I had nothing to do with that. We just found ourselves being put
in
the group.
The people who then came after you were in office.
Okay, the people who came when we were in office, the guy I put in, we had 3 silos. One of them was the technical area, and that was headed by Mr. S.K. Ndebele. The women's was headed by Rose, the legal by Mrs. Nyasha. So from the footballing point of view, I mean from the men's side, SK was the one who's been running with that. And all we say is we want people who are qualified for the job. And SK, I think, is a stickler for attention, and I think he's the one who actually recommended to us Mr. Marange. I asked him, why have you chosen him over anybody else? He says, no, this youngster has been with the South African club, and he took their under-17s to some success. So we're basing all these selections on success, past records, not where that person comes from.
Mr. Chairman, speak to me as if I'm a child. What is the challenge in getting a home for the Warriors? Why are we playing home games away?
Our stadiums are no longer meeting CAF standards. What that means is CAF have said they want to raise the standards of all our stadiums and not accept mediocre for our people. In other words, they want bucket seats in every stadium. They want proper, ablution blocks and things like that. So you find our stadiums, they still don't have bucket seats.
Why don't we put those things in?
I believe the ministry are now working full throttle to try and get those bucket seats in the national stadium. Similarly with Rufaro, which is owned by the council, I think they're also trying to do that.
And Baba Fields?
And BF as well, I think they also try to do that. But to me, the real solution long term is if the association can be given land and we construct our own stadium. Or if we can be given any of these stadiums on a lease of 20 years or more, FIFA will be willing to help us finance the construction of a stadium.
Does it worry you, though, that history will record that it was during your tenure that the Warriors were homeless and the people were crying, why?
No, not at all. It's it would actually could be an advantage, because as a result of this, if government now does turn around and say, no, let's really look at this footballing model. Why should councils continue to be owning the stadiums? Okay, why don't they give leases to the clubs, 20-year lease? Or they might even say, okay, no, let's give this, this is a major industry, it's an entertainment industry, let's give them land, and if they can develop those stadiums, would have created a completely big industry. So to me, I actually look at it as an opportunity. It might look negative that we're not playing at home, but on the other side, it might push our ministry or even the government to say, look, what's the long-term solution? The long-term sustainable solution is for football to own its own grounds, its own stadium. Because what happens is when the ground is at the, what do you call it, a national sports stadium, those are technocrats who are running it. It's no longer like cricket. You know, when cricket is owned by the cricketers, they always make sure the grass is looked after. Whereas at the stadium, if it's technocrats, they're just worried about the projects, you know, which scheduling. They're not worried about the grass. And that's what we need to bring in, a habit whereby footballers manage football facilities.
Mr. Chairman, let's wind this down. I like your first name, Chendi Saida. What I haven't done. What you haven't done is elections. And there are some things that you also haven't done as the Normalisation Committee.
It's coming.
What do you say to the criticism that you may be dragging some of these things because the money is good?
The money is not even an issue. You know, the first 3-4 months of the job, we had not been able to be registered on the FIFA platform. And it was genuinely people working from their own resources. So that to me clearly shows that people are doing this for the love or for the challenge, you know what I mean, wanting to face and achieve on a project. I think that has been our main goal. Let's deliver on this mandate. The money
is good.
No, we didn't even negotiate.
They just said we'll give you 6,000.
Not even.
5,000.
Whatever it was not negotiable. It's a situation where somebody says, yes, come in, I'm giving you so much, do that.
But Mr. Chairman, why would I negotiate if someone wanted to give me 5,000? Why would I negotiate? I cannot negotiate downwards, surely. I must just accept 5,000. That's a lot.
My brother, at my position, remember I was chairman of Almin Metal Industries. I think just for 4 board meetings, I was getting something comparative to that. I was MD of Eastman Kodak. I was getting maybe even more than that. So to me, what I'm saying is some of these things we should negotiate to see whether it fits the person, but it's now all water under the bridge. It's not important.
So for the record, you are doing your best. You believe that you are on course. You want to get everything done, and you will not stay a day longer in office.
Not a day long. None of us, all of us have got other things that we have suffered during the year that we've been in helping to bring football back on course. But we're happy for the experience, and we genuinely feel it's going to be a better Zifa going forward.
If at the end of it all, someone wanted to point at one thing, what would you say is the highlight of the FIFA Normalisation Committee, Zifa Normalisation Committee?
I believe one is going to be the TD, Technical Department area. It's going to be the connection with the schools, FIFA for schools, the grassroots development, and more importantly, the re-engagement of all the area zone clubs, right around the country for them coming back into the Zifa family. The importance of this is once these clubs and players are registered, we have a FIFA Connect platform. If a player is playing in Zimbabwe, whatever, in Blower there, Zimbabwe, and he's transferred to Highlanders. Highlanders sell that player to Manchester. That Zimbabwe team will always get a percentage for the development. This is something that has been lacking in our football. Once a player comes to the big clubs, the people who would have done the groundwork were missing out. So we have gone a long way to try and create this platform, which I think the limit is, the opportunities are limitless for people who are interested in football.
And never mind the criticism that the Normalisation Committee has let people down, that Mutasa is a quote out of depth, out of touch, end quote. You sleep peacefully at night?
I sleep very peacefully at night. As I told you earlier on, I think when I started, I said, as a player, I played in front of 30,000, 40,000 people. And each one would tell you, Psio, come out. But very quickly, I learned to shut out the noise, focus on what you need to do. And I've kept the same belief. And I think it served us well. I sleep peacefully, and I even talk to some of these supporters. Some literally phone me from South Africa, and we talk, we discuss. I don't turn anybody down, purely because I realize that they will be hurting. They are, they're very concerned. And then I tell them, no, don't listen to that report. That's a fictitious lie, or then they quickly fully understand what is happening.
And thank you very much for not turning us down. We are grateful for this opportunity. I did say there were criticism of you being ethnic, but I must go ethnic and say, Masita Shumba Gwara. Wakarara Kuchurowa Roa. Benga Guru. Thank you very much for the time.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lovemore Banda.
The chairman of the Zimbabwe Football Association Normalisation Committee, Lincoln Mutasa. It was good to have you along.
Aya, aya, aya,